Hello and welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. It is Friday and that means, as always, I'm joined by Tony Haggerty. How you doing, Tony?
I'm very well, Laura, yourself?
I'm fine. I forgot to introduce myself there. I'm Laura Bradburn. Jim Orr is here as well. Jim, how you doing?
Fine, thank you, Laura.
Lots to discuss. As you'll see below, before we go any further, we'll just let you know that the draw happened at 11 o'clock UK time this morning for the UEFA Europa League group stages. Celtic were drawn in Group G, I think it was, with Bayer Leverkusen, Real Betis and Ferencvaros. So plenty to discuss there, which we will get to. But before we do that, we'll go back to last night and what was rather, a night that wasn't good for the heart, let's put it that way. And Jim, I'll come to you first on that. What were your overall thoughts of the game against Alkmaar and the fact that we essentially just scraped our way through in the end?
I think we said this last week, the tie wasn't over. They're a really good team. I think they showed that last night. Just delighted to be through. Don't care who we play in this group stages. We were chatting a second ago how we are, and Tony said we'll do a wee bit of luck. Now we are due a wee bit of luck. I thought the back four and the goalkeeper were absolutely fantastic, and notwithstanding the wee mistake Hart makes and Starfelt makes. But in terms of the art of defending, tackling, putting your head against balls, shape, set pieces, all that stuff, I thought were really, really good. It's when we start to play the Ange ball, but it gets a bit hairy. And I talked about it's kind of heart attack football. So after 5 minutes, you think it's Joe heart attack football here. And I can't be the only one who was sitting there last night, must have shouted 20, 30 times, hoof it, get rid of it. But we kept playing the way we were playing. And it's a dangerous game. But we managed to survive, having made a couple of silly mistakes. And a player can miskick a ball at any point in time. I thought Starfelt was really good. I thought he came onto a game because you have to be mentally tough when you make those kind of mistakes so early in the game with so much at stake. Thought they were great. Ralston again set the goal up. I mean, it was his quick ball that kind of set away Abada. It was his ball that, for me, made it. And Montgomery coming on, 19-year-old kid, outstanding, Welsh, solid as usual. So I thought the back four and the goalkeeper won us the game last night. I got us through last night. The midfield were very, very quiet. It's the quietest Tom Rogic's been all season. Abada, apart from setting up the goal, didn't contribute. Kyogo was very quiet as well. Ryan Christie I thought was good. Put himself about as he always does. But overall, having seen that team last week up close, I said last week I wouldn't be surprised if we went to extra time last night. But also said that I don't matter if we lose playing badly as long as we get through. I don't mind if we win playing badly on Sunday as long as we win. And at this stage of the season, I think it's about winning games because about a few weeks ago we went away in Europe, dominated the game, scored the first goal and lost 2-1. And for a lot of Celtic fans, we were an absolute meltdown. And last night we go away, we score the first goal, we lose 2-1. Didn't play particularly well, but we're all happy because it's results. And although we like to see the Ange ball and the 6-0, 6-0 games, it's about winning. As long as we win, great. And if we can get the Ange ball on top of that, even better.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to be the referee here, Tony, and get your thoughts on it, because Jim said that he thought the defence got us through, and I think in the second half they did shore up in the second half and find their footing, and I think that is essentially what got us through. But there's a lot of people that would say, myself included, that it was them that got us in the trouble we were in the first place. The Starfelt own goal, Hart having the mess up that he did for the first AZ goal. They are showing naivety still, aren't they? Even if they are sort of starting to find their feet.
First and foremost, what I will say is, what a marvellous achievement it is to get into the Europa League group stages from 4 weeks ago, right? From where the club was 4 weeks ago, and from where Ange was and where everybody thought we were going to be. So it's a fantastic achievement. And the names you see there, I'm like Jim, doesn't matter who you draw, it's just wonderful to be there. We earned our luck last night, but like you, our defence and our midfield put us under pressure last night by playing or trying to play the Ange ball. And Russell Boyce and myself are sick of saying it, but you have to adapt in certain situations. Jim said it there, play hoofball at times, but there are times when we could have knocked it into space to Abada or tried to find Kyogo, in corners and just give themselves a breather. But they tried to play football too many times last night at the wrong time. And I think Jim's right. I think the experience of Hart got us through because he had a couple of good saves that kind of redeemed him after his mistake. People tell me that Starfelt come onto a game, but I'm kind of like, but his mistake put us under the pressure that we ended up under. You know? And it's an amateur mistake for an international. It's a similar mistake to the one he made at Tynecastle when he tried to get the ball. You know, he's went for a volley there that was non-existent, where if he was spatially aware, he would have known what to do, and then succeeded and he swiped at the ball and it's came off the shin of his other leg and went in the net. You know, and after 26 minutes, that tie is flipped on its head. You know, and
just while you're on Starfelt, Tony, I'll put this to him. I was sitting watching the game with my brother last night, and he obviously has much more experience actually playing 11-a-side football than me, and played it to a decent level as a teenager. He said what he can't believe about Starfelt, aside from the own goal, was even when he's passing the ball across the back or passing the ball into the midfield, he doesn't seem to know how to select the correct pass, whether to side foot it, whether to put it in the air, whether to put the laces through it. I mean, he's showing a lot of basic sort of lack of knowledge, is he not?
Well, I don't know if it's a lack of knowledge, but he certainly looks uncomfortable playing handball, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. He's one that's not got to grips with it, you know, and I'm of the opinion, defend first, work on finesse later. You know my thoughts on that. I've said it many times on this programme. But Jim said to me that he came onto a game and started winning headers, and that's been pointed out to me by a few people because I was quite stingy in my marks for Starfelt.
I also, just to clarify what I said earlier, when they were defending really well. When they started to play Ange ball, they struggled because I don't think they're the best players to play Ange ball, but Ange's telling them to do that. So if Ange's telling them to hit the ball across the back and take touch and stuff like that, they're not doing that because they want to do it. They're doing that because they're getting told to do it. And that's why we've had the chat over the past few weeks to see whether we think Starfelt is an Ange type player. And we don't really know that. And I think Ange is going to bring his own types of players in. I thought, the thing is, if you're a defender and you miss kick a ball, the chances are something bad will happen. And you said Eddie played really well last night. I think he did play well, but he gave the ball away quite a lot of times as well. You can give the ball away a lot of times as a centre forward, and there is no consequences. And I just felt last night when it came to putting in tackles, in terms of the shape of the team, putting your head where it's going to hurt, organisational wise, I thought the defence did really well. Hart, you know, these things happen. The Starfelt thing, he miskicks the ball, but I don't think they cut us open very often last night, and that was down to good shape, I think, in my opinion. I think we did really, really well because the midfield, I don't think contributed that much.
Once when the boy missed a sitter for 3-1, they kind of cut us open and the boy missed a real chance. But that was
over the course of 90 minutes.
Yeah, no, but listen,
to restricting them to 2 or 3 chances, I thought was really, really good, given how young that defence is as well.
Self-inflicted wounds they scored from.
Of course.
You know, so you take that on board, and you know you go 3-0 up in 2 minutes over the tie. You know, it could have been a lot more comfortable.
Of course,
it should have been. Let's be honest.
I also think in the first leg, the save by Hart changed the game.
Yeah,
and then last night, the Hart mistake could have changed the whole tie.
Yeah.
But as you said, we got a wee bit of luck, managed to get through, and I think over the 2 legs, they were literally slightly the better team over the 2 legs. To actually manage to get through against a team who are a bit better than you, that's a huge achievement.
Yeah, and also I don't think you can underestimate the pass that Anthony Ralston played to Abada for the opening goal.
Absolutely, yeah,
fantastic, yeah.
Listen, if Dani Alves plays that, you know, you're raving about it. It's a fantastic pass. I mean, it is the definition of a defence splitter because you knew what was going to happen when Abada got the ball because you saw Kyogo running in and you knew Celtic were going to score.
And Ryan Christie was waiting there if he wasn't going to get it as well.
All he had to do was do what he did. You know, it was a classic Ange ball goal. You know, just a quick, slick, scintillating, attacking, fast-breaking, attacking move. You know, and they caught it, right? And then Anthony Ralston's contribution in that, as Jim said, has made that goal. The rest's easy. Because once you set a winger away and he's looking up when he's seeing a centre forward who's lightning, you just play the right pass, and you didn't surprise that it ended up in the net. And also as well, Adam Montgomery coming in, and he was under a lot of pressure, Adam Montgomery, down that side, but he did well. And I like to what Jim said, Ryan Christie helped him because he kept digging in and he was full of running and full of energy. And then when he was switched, when Edouard came on and Rogic was taken off, Ryan Christie also played better, so as you say, they earned their luck last night, Celtic, because despite shooting themselves in the foot, they did eventually defend well because they've won through the tie, and it doesn't matter how you do it. Celtic are in Group G alongside Bayer Leverkusen, Real Betis and Ferencvaros, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and Stone Cold says so, as they say. A couple of comments on YouTube. Thank you for commenting, everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn. We're on 8 different locations. You can catch us on all of them. Please like and subscribe on YouTube especially, and you can win another giveaway. We've got some framed... it's got a framed Fratelli's presentation for sales of one of their albums that is on the giveaway if you go on to Paul John Dykes' Twitter for the month of August to have a look at that. A couple of comments coming up on YouTube that I wanted to raise. Robot Rock says, "Are you ever happy, Laura?" I'm happy you're watching the show, Robot. Thanks very much for tuning in. William Peden on YouTube says, "Starfelt was not an Ange pick," and that kind of picks up on something you said, Jim, and I did want to raise with you. Starfelt doesn't look comfortable playing Ange ball, and yet we're led to believe he was an Ange pick. Liam Scales has kind of almost fully been announced as a Celtic signing. I think given the history of Ange's football knowledge, I wouldn't assume that a defender from Shamrock Rovers would have been one of his first picks. I wouldn't assume that James McCarthy is an Ange pick. Do you see a kind of a divide between what are definitely Ange signings like Furuhashi and Abada and ones like Starfelt and Scales and McCarthy that definitely aren't?
I think it's a really good question. I've said before, time is Ange's enemy. He needs bodies in just now, and it's whether Ange can wait to get these other guys in maybe he wants. Maybe he kind of needs must. And I mentioned in previous weeks getting kind of experienced, battle-hardened guys in, and I think Hart and Starfelt, whether people thought they were good last night, I thought those were the guys with those kind of qualities that get you through those kind of games last night. I think we've had this question in the past, the Neil Lennon, Peter Lawwell, who's signing whom type thing. We've all mentioned the Starfelt thing, that it doesn't look particularly comfortable. So that makes you think, is he an Ange signing or not? Who knows what goes on behind the scenes? It's a very complex business, trying to get players. Who's to know that Ange tried to sign 2 or 3 players and couldn't get them for whatever reason and thought, well, Starfelt looks okay, let's just get him in. You'd like to think Ange is getting one would assume Ange is getting the final say on all the players, but it could be that it's other people that's bringing players to him, as opposed to Ange coming up with ideas and saying, let's go for this guy. And I think it will take maybe 1 or 2 more transfer windows before he gets all his guys in. Having qualified last night, and I don't think the money is particularly all that much more than what the Europa Conference League will be. I think we've got an interesting 4 or 5 days ahead to get some players in the door. And it's a very complex business. We want guys out the door as well. So hopefully he can bring in a couple of Ange players that can play his system, because I've said in the past, or I've said some things in the past, and people have said you're very negative. I'm not negative about any of the Celtic players. I think Ralston was outstanding last night. But can you get a better player than Ralston? Of course you can. Greg Taylor's come in for, some of the boo boys against Greg Taylor. I've never said Greg Taylor's a bad player. To play for Scotland and Celtic and Scotland, you have to be a good player. But, he's maybe not the biggest player. He's maybe not got the best pace. So are you happy with that? Or do you want somebody who's a bit bigger, who can help with set pieces, who's got a bit more pace, who help up front? You would tend to go for the latter. So to answer the question, I'm not so sure Starfelt is an Ange signing. It's maybe somebody we've had on our radar for a wee while. Maybe the opportunity came along. He needed a body. He's an experienced guy. He's battle-hardened. Get him in, he'll do the job. But maybe just avoid him when they're playing Ange ball. Maybe play it from Ralston to Taylor, to Welsh to Taylor to Ralston. Miss out Starfelt altogether. Just let him put in the headers and put in the tackles.
Let him defend.
Just let him defend. Aye. Hoof it. Aye, who's that?
I think that's fair, and I think I certainly don't see in Starfelt, for example, what Ange must see in players to make him a worthwhile signing. But Tony, I wanted to look a bit at the midfield as well. They seem to be completely missed out for a lot of the game last night. You know, you talk about the ball from Ralston to Abada. It was a fantastic pass, but it was kind of symptomatic of the way that we played, I think, wasn't it? That you know, we very much were going from back to front and missing out the middle, and I think that was maybe part of the reason we couldn't get a foothold in the game for so long.
When the change was made, you could have taken any of your midfielders off last night, really, couldn't you? Possibly with the exception of Christie, who was probably shading it, the better of the midfield four, shall we say. But McGregor, Turnbull, Rogic, certainly, when that board was being held up, it was one of those three, wasn't it? Now, you didn't think you would take off the skipper. Turnbull, you know, can shoot from 25, 30 yards quite accurately, so maybe kept on for that. But the game bypassed the three of them, or they tried to play football against a team that just pressed them and closed them down and knew they were going to try and play football. So they were anticipating their every ball and every pass. You know, and even at times when Callum McGregor, who's usually calm and composed and reassured, you know, at times you just thought to yourself, well, knock into a channel, Callum. They know you're going to try and play it to Rogic or Turnbull or Christie. You know, so that's why it wasn't working. You know, and it took that substitution for Edouard to come on, for the ball to stick. Jim said, yeah, he gave the ball away a couple of times, but certainly Celtic's shape was better when Rogic went off and Edouard came on. The ball was sticking. They started to make advances into the Alkmaar half, and for the last half an hour, were comfortable because Jim said they may be tired a bit, but you made them go long and they wanted to do the high press, but you started to play a bit of football. You got a foothold in the game, which had largely bypassed the midfielders. But after the hour mark, McGregor came into it, Turnbull came into a wee bit, Christie was more of a force, and then Edouard kind of gave a lesson in how you kind of play striker in Europe. You hold it up, you play guys in, and Abada, who Jim said had a pure game, he had a couple of lazy, sloppy passes that could have played Edouard in one-on-one. You know, and these things can make a difference. You know, you have to get that right. You know, as I say about Celtic, got through in the end, but as much as they scored a wonderful goal, there was a lot that didn't function, and it was your tried and tested middle to front that didn't function, strangely enough, last night. And that was kind of, I think there was a wee awakening in terms of the Ange ball, that it ain't going to work every time. And when it doesn't work and you're put under pressure by better teams, then you can suffer. You know, but despite the fact that the goals against us were gifted by Celtic, you know, they were still kind of second to a lot of balls last night. You know, up until the hour mark, they were kind of second best, weren't they? Without actually being totally outplayed. You know, I mean, Hearts had a couple of good saves, you know, so, but AZ Alkmaar were a tidy, slick outfit, and it's the best team Celtic have played this season, and they won't come up against many teams of that calibre, you know, but they held their own over two legs, you know, proofs in the pudding. Celtic are through. So, you know, that I think that was a real gauge and a real test, and they've come through it. You know, there is stuff you can be negative about, but the positive is that they've came through it and they'll learn from it. They will get better, but getting better means bringing in players that are comfortable playing this system, and they have a few days to do that. But I think, as Jim says, they'll probably have to wait until after the January window, but they might try and get, I mean, they're going to have to try and get a couple of players in, and Ange type players, because he'll see that for himself, the same things that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think Tony raises a good point there, Jim. Edouard has come in for a lot of stick, partly because there's an assumption amongst a lot of supporters that he wants out the door. There's also, you know, some dissatisfaction, which I've seen as well with his performances. But I think last night, as Tony said, as you've said, as people in the comments are saying, he provided that bit of experience, that bit of calm, that ability to put his foot on the ball and as Tony said, make it stick up top, that just took the pressure off the midfield and the defence for the last half an hour. It was probably the key decision that got us over the line in the end, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think them running out of steam maybe after an hour, and then us changing the shape a wee bit, and we looked a lot more solid. And just to get back to the Starfelt question, I was just thinking there when you were chatting there. I think if Neil Beaton hadn't raised his hand in that Michelin game, Beaton is an ideal Ange player because he's good on the ball. Maybe he's not the best defender in the world. I think Aya would have been a good Ange player, not the best defender, but good on the ball. Just to finish that one, I'd like to see us sign a big physical player up front who can do what Edouard did last night. You know, big target man, get the ball, hold it up, play people in, etc. So hopefully, I would like to see us sign somebody like that. I'd like to see Kyogo playing off a big physical guy. And that's the other thing about last night. Even though people like me are shouting hoof it, you know if you hoof it, it's coming straight back because Kyogo ain't going to win anything in the air. So that's why we play the Ange ball, because if it works really well when we've taken 2 or 3 their players out of the game. We've got the ball, we're in their half, something's going to happen. So I also said a few weeks ago, Ange has to play two different types of games. There's games at Celtic Park and there's games away from Celtic Park. And at Celtic Park, wide open spaces, fantastic surface, 60,000 fans behind you, completely different game to going away from home with maybe a smaller pitch, maybe not a good surface. Their fans been there. So I mean, we've played 3 competitive away games and haven't won any of them yet. So no, that's a concern. But we're blowing teams away at Celtic Park, and I just think we have to do something a wee bit different. So maybe when we do play away from home, maybe we're going to bring in a James McCarthy or a Soro or a Beaton or somebody into the middle of the park, and maybe we do need a wee bit more physicality up front because, as I said, Kyogo was, apart from his fantastic goal, wasn't much in the game last night. So we certainly need someone else, and I know everyone's got kind of mixed views of Eddie, and he did do well last night. It's just, for me, he's still not the Eddie of 18, 19 months ago, where you think he's going to score tonight, he's going to score 2 or 3 tonight, he's going to do all sorts of stuff, he's going to nutmeg people. For whatever reason, to me, he just doesn't seem to be at that kind of level yet. And maybe it's a different system or whatever, but I think we need to sign somebody with a bit of physicality before the deadline. We need that, I think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons that the Thomas Henry deal sort of dying a death was disappointing for me, because I think he would have been the ideal type of person that you're looking for to play off of, or for a Furuhashi to play off of, I should say. Tony, looking ahead, the draws, obviously, as is listed there below, was done this morning. We've got Bayer Leverkusen, Real Betis Ferencvaros. Probably one of the tougher groups that was drawn. How much do you know, apart from Ferencvaros, who obviously we've got recent experience with, how much do you know about Bayer Leverkusen and Real Betis? What kind of pedigree do you think they have to produce a tie that's going to make it difficult for us?
I think Bayer Leverkusen hammered Borussia Mönchengladbach recently, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And Borussia Mönchengladbach came to Celtic Park a couple of years ago and gave you a bit of a lesson, didn't they? So you just know any Bundesliga team is, they're usually top notch. And Bayer Leverkusen went to Ibrox and defeated Rangers 3-1 not that long ago. So you just know that they're going to be well drilled, efficient, and they're good. They're pretty clinical, So that's obviously they're the top seeds in the group. So for a reason. They're always there or thereabouts in Germany, competing for honours and silverware. So that's a tough game. But you know what? As Jim said, I think at home, Celtic can be a match for anybody at home. And I include the Germans in that. And you'd like to think they'd be able to beat Ferencvaros home and away. But that's, we'll soon see. Real Betis, Celtic's record in Spain is not the greatest, is it? We always seem to come a cropper against Spanish sides. But, I'm of the opinion that, it might look on paper a tough group, but it could have been tougher. Our main aim was to get there and be there. We're a work in progress. We'll keep improving as we go along this season. And by the time these games come around, we'll be we'll be improving gradually. So I think we'll be more than a match for all of these teams, and we will be able to compete. You know, if you asked me that 4 weeks ago and said you're going to be joining a group like this, you know, I would have been like, oh no, no way. But, you know, now you're seeing things are happening. And yeah, you know, it's easy to pick the bones out of last night and be negative in terms of some of the parts of the performance. But the huge positive is that they're through. This is where we wanted Celtic to be. You know, the Champions League tie we all said was going to come too early. And it was just the way we lost to a bang average Danish side that everybody thought, you know, if you were to play them now, you would put them out, you would beat them home and away. You know, but we're not playing them now, so we're falling into this tournament, and we got as hard a tie as we could have faced in the playoff round, and we've come through that. So let's accentuate that positive, and also say that by the time these ties come around, we might have a few more players in. Ange Ball we might be more comfortable playing that kind of style, and I think we'll be more than a match for them. Can we advance through the group? I'm looking at it, and it's not a group to fear, is it?
No, I wouldn't say so.
There's difficult games, but you don't fear anybody in that group, because I think you feel confident in the fact that you can give as good as you get. You know, and that's my thoughts on it. I looked at it, and you know, it's not a group of death. Let's put it that way.
Well, Snick67 on Twitch says 3 out of 4 teams are playing in green and white, so that's a beautiful thing in and of itself. Jim, I think the main thing that I found from the draw was, and that was refreshing, was, you know, and this is kind of a very privileged problem to have, but being around European football as we have been for so many years, you know, you come up against the same teams over and over again: Benfica, Villarreal, Lyon, AC Milan, Barcelona. You know, they're just a few of the teams that we've drawn repeatedly in our groups and in our qualifier ties. It's kind of refreshing to be going into a group where, Ferencvaros aside, we're playing 2 teams who we've not got a lot of experience playing. Just gives us something different to look forward to, does it not?
I think in any cup competition, I'd always want to play weak teams, because you want to go as far as you can, and if you want to play the bigger teams, hopefully you get into the later stages, then you play the big teams. I've got no great knowledge of European football at all, apart from the fact that they're a German team and a Spanish team. They must be half decent, and a Hungarian team not as good as the other two. We're a pot 2 team. Can we get second place? Of course we can get second place. I think that group's wide open. We could go in and win it. We could end up last. Who knows? It's just good being there. I wasn't first who we got. As you said, Tony, Parkhead, Celtic Park, you know, we should be a match for anyone. We could beat those 3 teams at Celtic Park. We could, if we nick 3 points at Ferencvaros and get a point at Real Betis, then that's the second. Not a problem. Move on. I just think that we'll be in a far different place in 4 or 5 weeks' time. Yeah. We'll have a better idea of what we're like. Never mind what they're like. We'll have a better idea of what we're like, you know. And I think it's a bit of a journey, this one, and we're taking steps in this Ange journey, and every game we're learning something new. And what was good about last night, I thought we learned a lot last night. I thought we could have spent the complete hour today talking about last night and all the things that came out of last night, the good stuff and the stuff that maybe wasn't so good. And I kind of felt that we're always going to lose daft goals playing the Ange system. We lost some daft goals last night, but still lived to tell the tale, still managed to get through the game. You know, to hate to lose a game 1-0 by one of those, you know, daft passes in the back 4. So that was good. We lost some stupid goals, but we still, you know, lived to tell the tale. As I said, I think we'll win a completely different place in 4 or 5 weeks' time. I think Ange has done a remarkable job in the however long he's been here, 7-8 weeks. Give him another 4 or 5 weeks. Also, the fact at this stage of the season, the games are coming thick and fast. We're going to get an international break coming up, and hopefully not as many games. I don't think the European games start until at the end of next month. Mm-hmm. So that gives Ange a bit of time on the training pitch, and obviously he's a kind of hands-on guy, which Neil Lennon wasn't. So I think the more time Ange gets on the training pitch, the better the team are going to be. The less games that they play, the higher the intensity they can play as well. So I think we'll be in a completely different place, and I didn't really mind who we got. because all the really big teams are in the Champions League. So we're not getting, as you said, AC Milan or Barcelona. And that's not to say these teams aren't very, very good teams, because if you're in the German league and the Spanish league, you must be half decent. But I'm just looking forward to the games. And I think after the 18, 19 months we had of not going to football, I think, people loved that game last week. I said after the Thursday night, it was a fantastic game, two teams going head to head. And what I think you also find with these games, unlike games in Scotland, that those three teams ain't going to come to Celtic Park and park the bus. They're going to be open, expansive games. They're going to be good to watch. And I don't know if they're evenly matched teams, but certainly we're not playing against teams who we should beat or who we should thrash. These will be good competitive games, exciting, and they will all sell out. And after that 19 months that we've been through, I think the fans will just be desperate to go to see them. And hopefully the Celtic board are sensible about how much they charge for these games. Nothing ridiculous.
I hope so. I hope if they have control over the pricing and stuff like that, they give us fair pricing so as that families and supporters who don't otherwise manage to get to the games can get along, as well as the season ticket holders who obviously will have to pay more on top of their season tickets to get to these games. So but hopefully it's all fairly done, and as you say, we can see some good games at Celtic Park. Thanks everybody for watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere that we are broadcasting today. Apologies for my microphone. I think some people in the chat were saying it was a bit hot. I'm doing what I can. I swear I haven't touched a thing when I came on this morning, but sometimes these things have a mind of their own. Strange Love the Doctor said on YouTube that it's a chance to make new friends in Europe with these new teams that we're playing, and you can make new friends with a state of mind if you come and watch our live shows. You can chat to everybody in the chat. You see the same names every week, which grows every week as well, which is great to see. And lots of people coming back. We love having you in the chat on the shows and interacting with us in that way. It's really appreciated. Okay. We've reached the halfway point in the show, and that means only one thing: time to look ahead to the weekend that's to come. I'm going to come back to you, Jim, on this first. We're going to Ibrox to play a Rangers team supposedly decimated by COVID. I'm not sure those who wrote the word decimated understands what it means, but they are going to be weakened in some sort of key areas and certainly be missing some key players if we're led to be believing that. How much of a role do you think that plays in us having a better chance of doing something at the weekend, or is it a case of, as Ange says, sticking to our game and playing our game?
I don't think it matters at all. I think come Sunday, I think their team will be very strong. I think I don't subscribe to a lot of Celtic fans. I'll say we'll go there and win easily. They're a good team. They're a solid unit. They've had a wee wobble. Tough game. I think if we're playing a game at Celtic Park, I'd be very confident. I think home advantage might be a big issue. Come Sunday, they've got players who could hurt us. Not trying to be negative. I just think it's a tough game. I don't know who's out for them. If you go back to this time, if you go back to the first Glasgow derby last year, we were missing Eddie, who at that time was our star player. Ryan Christie was out, who was the form player at the time, and with Dale Hammond and Beaton out as well. So if they've Tavernier out, young boy Patterson's meant to be a bit of a world beater. So, is that like for like? If you lose a goalkeeper, McGregor's outstanding. So then if they bring in someone else, that gives a wee bit of a better chance. But I think they're just dead solid, and I think most of the players are going to be there come Sunday. So I wouldn't read too much into that. And with 50,000 of their own fans backing them and no Celtic fans in the stadium, I know there's no lions in the Lions Den, but it's a bit of a Lions Den come Sunday. And if we thought we were stressed out, having heart attacks last night, watching Ange Ball, goodness knows what Sunday's going to be like when Starfelt gets the ball. Hoof it. So I think it's going to be a tough game on Sunday. I think everyone has to be on their game. 8, 9 out of 10s to pick up Tony's marking system. Everyone has to contribute. No daft mistakes, no missed kicks, no goalkeeping rushes of blood to the head. We get chances, we take chances, we're confident, we play on the ball. If we do all that stuff, then no reason why we can't win. But the head says I think it's going to be a difficult game. And I said at the start is a few weeks ago, if we came out at the end of August, no more than 3 points behind, I'd be delighted with that. There The heart says I think we'll win. The head says we might lose. I'm going to go in the middle. I think we'll get a point. I think we'll end up somewhat 2 each. Yeah, an open game, and I'd be happy with that.
Russell's playing about with the buttons in the background. He's getting transit come up here. It was Angie's tactics that beat AZ 2-0 at Celtic Park. Could have been 3. We just need to sort out the defence. And I think that's the key thing. I think that's what you were alluding to, Jim, there about a draw. We're as likely to concede at the moment as we are to score, kind of thing. Tony, what are your thoughts on looking ahead at how we manage to engage with this team, especially considering, as Jim says, there are going to be no fans in the stadium? How big of a difference will that make for us?
I think that's a huge difference, but you have to just go and blank that out. Most players say they don't hear the crowd. Well, Celtic players are going to not have to hear the crowd on Sunday if they can manage it, and blank it out somehow. But I'm cautiously optimistic. I agree with Jim. I think Rangers will have a strong team out, possibly their strongest team. I don't read much into these things because there's new rules concerning COVID regarding players and stuff. So Rangers will have as close to the strongest team, if not their strongest team out in the park on Sunday. So that's fine. Can Celtic go there and win? Of course they can go there and win. But as Jim says, got to compete. If you go there and compete and play the football that you're capable of and the football that we've witnessed domestically and in the first leg against AZ Alkmaar, then of course they can win. There's no reason why they can't. But Rangers are a solid side. They're good, and as Jim said, they've got players that can hurt you. So you have to be guarded against that. And you have to, as every player has to win. It's that whole thing about winning their individual battles. They have to do that. But conversely, Celtic have got players that can hurt Rangers. And I think, from middle to front, domestically, they've looked pretty imperious. So they've got this chance to go to Ibrox in that stage and show how good they are. But I think there's a different mindset now. A few weeks ago, Celtic weren't really relishing trip to Ibrox, and they were saying, we'll take a draw if we can. Now a lot of fans are saying, we can turn them over. I don't subscribe to that either. I just think if they can go there and record any kind of win, it would be great. I just think that it's a tough game, and on the back of another tough test that they've come through, and there's no reason to suggest that they can't come through another possibly tougher test on Sunday. But you've got to go there, and everything has to be top notch, as Jim says. 8 and 9s. Players have to really put in a shift, and can they play Ange ball at Ibrox and be successful? We'll find out. And I also think that if I would play Eddie alongside Kyogo.
Right.
The team that finished last night had been climbed well, with the exception of Montgomery. Depends, you got a call to make there. Might be too big a game for a young guy like Montgomery, but I'd certainly play Kyogo alongside Eddie on Sunday. Maybe Tom Rogic could be the man to miss out in the midfield, and finish with that midfield. As I say, the big call you're probably going to have is, do you throw Scales in straight away if he's here and he's signed? For Montgomery, if Greg Taylor, who looks as if it's a nasty shoulder injury he's got, might not recover in time. So if that's the case, then that's maybe the change you make. But yeah, I would feel a lot more confident if he played Eddie alongside Kyogo on Sunday in the starting lineup. That's my thoughts. I don't know, that might go against others' thoughts, but I think it's the way Celtic can probably exploit Rangers, because I don't think they're fantastic at the back.
Mm-hmm.
Never put them under any great pressure last season, but I think this team is capable of putting their backline under pressure, and they can enjoy from it.
I think looking at the comments coming through, there's a kind of 50-50, and I think we reflect it here in that, for me personally, I would rather see us go with Abada and Christie out wide and Kyogo through the middle. You and some of the listeners, I see Smick67 on Twitch and some others saying that they're in agreement with you that Eddie should be up front and Kyogo out left, the way we finished the match against AZ Alkmaar. Jim, what's your thoughts on that? What side do you fall on in terms of the debate for Sunday about Eddie versus Kyogo through the middle and how that works?
I'm on your side, Laura. 2-1 the good guys. No, I think Kyogo's wasted in that left wing. I thought the St Mirren game last week, watching the game, he was getting frustrated out there. He kept coming inside quite a lot, and he was. Another thing I've kind of noticed about him, he keeps flinging himself into tackles he doesn't have to do, and I'm just concerned he gets injured and might get booked for things like that. So I'd like to see him through the middle. If it was the Eddie of 19 months ago, he's a first pick in the team. But I just think Eddie, as I said, for whatever reason, just isn't there. A lot of the Glasgow derbies tend to be won in the middle of the park. And we're a very offensive middle of the park. So, does he make a change in there to bring in somebody like a Soro or McCarthy if he's fit or doesn't have COVID, or even near Beaton, maybe somebody like that, just to maybe make that wee change because...
no Beaton. Beaton nowhere near that team, Jim.
No, but I think...
No.
I think, as we've all kind of said, maybe sometimes it's a kind of horses for courses, and that's why I keep talking about the time being the enemy thing. If we get out of Ibrox with a point, I think that's okay. It's going to be a hard-fought point to get the point up. To get anything out of the game is going to be hard-fought. Abada not been too good last night. Is James Forrest anywhere near fit? Is that a longer-term thing?
I've not seen anything. I'm surprised to see him not more involved than he has been. Tony, I don't know if you know much about his fitness situation at the moment.
But, Abada made one telling contribution last night, and that was for the goal, It's what he brings. I mean, he accelerated onto that ball like lightning, and his ball across was just pinpoint accuracy, and he's been playing well. Abada.
Well, I think he's a good player. I mean, I think he's a very good player, but I think
guys can have a bad day to the office. He wasn't alone last night and no being great, So I'd still be inclined to keep Abada in the starting lineup because domestically he's been very good, So I just think guys can have an off game in terms of the high standards that they've set. And I think that afflicted Abada last night, but he wasn't alone, So
no, I think he's only 19, and he's playing wide, and then wide players do go through. I mean, they're not going to be great every single game. In some games, it just doesn't work out for you. I just wondered because it's Ibrox, and if Forrest is fit, whether maybe Ange would be inclined to go with Forrest, and maybe, as you mentioned, maybe leave somebody like Tom Rodgick out and bring in a more defensively minded player. Does he change things around a wee bit? Don't know. And it's a bit that if you do play Eddie up front, then you could go long. If the Ange ball isn't working, then we can try and mix up a little bit. And that's getting back to a lack of physicality up front that we kind of need to play the Ange ball because of the team we have.
There's a familiarity with Forrest, though. I think Abada's more of an unknown quantity that can trouble Rangers more. In my opinion, Rangers have played Forrest before, and he has scored a couple of goals against them, but they've genuinely known how to play him. So Abada's something a bit different, and he's quite fast and can accelerate away from players and stuff like that. So I would be inclined to keep Abada, even if Forrest is fit, and maybe have Forrest on the bench to come on at some point and play a part in the game if he's fit enough.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and it's one of the things that's actually encouraging to listen to, given the position we were in a few weeks ago. We're talking about, although we need bodies in, we're talking about slight disagreements on what choices we have, and the fact that we do have choices to make different options going forward is good to hear. Looking at the middle of the park, as Jim said, and I'll come to you on this, Tony, McCarthy, some people might think is an appropriate option to maybe have some metal in the middle of the park where a lot of the game is won. Do you think that's a change that we need to make, or do we try and overwhelm them in the first 20 minutes, half an hour, the way we have done with other teams?
Yeah, but if that doesn't work, then that's when you have to start thinking of plan Bs and stuff. And I think last night it was evident that there wasn't a lot of physicality in that midfield last night, was there?
No.
So we needed somebody, a Soro or a McCarthy. Personally, I would have preferred McCarthy. And I think if you want solidity in there, then McCarthy's your man. So it's going to have to come at the expense of a footballer, whether that be Rodgick or Turnbull, which are probably your obvious two, because you'll no drop the skipper and Christie's playing out his skin, you know. So if that's the kind of thing, but I think there is an argument for physicality in there because we don't have an awful lot, but we have got players that can play around teams, you know, that are skillful, technically gifted, and as you say, if the 20 minutes that they have and they can blow teams away and it works, it's great. But when it doesn't work like last night, then you have to start thinking, okay, who's going to come in there and perform a function for me to help us get a result? And I think McCarthy would be that best option if that's what he wants to do. You know, just gives you a bit of solidity there and, you know, physicality and, you know, because you know it's going to be a physical battle at Ibrox. You know that from the off. You know, your flair players will come in for some treatment. You know, Kyogo's of this world, Eddie's if he plays. You know, so you know that from the off. You know, because Celtic is, their style is slick. It's pretty scintillating. You know, how our team's going to cope with that? They're going to mark out your star players for some treatment. I mean, it's no rocket science. They're going to kick you or attempt to kick you, you know, so...
I think Kyogo knows that already, given the treatment he's had so far.
So, you know, so that's... And, you know, and why wouldn't they? You know, you've got skillful players that can turn out to be better than the opposition. They're going to use by all means necessary, and if that means brute force, then they're going to do it. So, you know what kind of game's coming up on Sunday, so you think you do, so you have to sort of try and combat that as well. It's all right having football players, but if they're not getting a kick of the ball, you know, and they've been shut down and they've been kicked or whatever, you know, and it's not happening, then you have to try and combat that in some shape or form. So how part of me possibly thinks that it could be tailor-made for somebody like McCarthy, who is battle-hardened and experienced, as Jim says, a lot of English Premier League experience and knowledge, so it might be the time for him to step up to the plate and into the cauldron of Ibrox, because it is going to be a place for cool heads and experience, and the worry is that it bypasses some people, some players, you know, their first experience of it, and they maybe get stage fright because there are no Celtic fans there and it is a bear pit. You know, that's in the back of your mind. You're hoping that doesn't happen, but you think to yourself, don't let it happen, but it's conceivable. You know, that's the thing. So you have to sort of guard against, and the way you guard against this is maybe picking a horses for courses team.
Is that some repairs on Ibrox getting done outside one of your windows I can hear?
It's me.
There's something going on anyway. Yeah. We'll see what happens anyway on Sunday. There's plenty to discuss and plenty to pick over.
I think also, Laura, just to butt in there, I think
Jim.
what's different from this game, from the previous games we played, you said something like we come out in the first 20 minutes all guns blazing. They'll come out in the first 20 minutes all guns blazing. So that's going to be different from what some of these guys have had to face. And I know it's an old football cliche, you get by the first 20 minutes. If it's still 0-0 after then we start playing the football, then we get a foothold in the game, and then hopefully we go on and win. But we know what they're going to be like in the first 20 minutes. It's going to be just like all-out attack, and just let's get through that with some calm heads. And if we have to play balls long into the corner and waste a bit of time, whatever it is, just get through that and then start to build it. That'll be different. And then, as Tony said, we might need some kind of older, cooler heads to get through that period to then start playing the football.
Yeah.
Another thing I wondered whether was the new guy we've signed. Could he play left back?
I think he can. Yeah.
Oh,
no, the boy from Croatia.
Josip Juranovic, yeah. I think he can.
He might be worth putting in, given an experienced guy playing left back as opposed to taking a risk on young Montgomery, who was brilliant last time. It's whether you want to throw him into that game or not.
Yeah, I think you have to go with your more experienced players, don't you? That would be my take on it as well.
Mine as well, yeah.
You've got a Croatian international there. He has to be used. He has to be deployed in some, even if it's an unaccustomed role.
Yeah.
You know, he's still a defender.
I'd go for that as well. Yeah.
Almost, you know. So I would be inclined to do that too.
Yeah. It's an interesting shout, and we'll see what happens. It might come to fruition, obviously, with Greg Taylor having that shoulder injury that I would assume will keep him out of the game on Sunday. To close out the show, and Jim, I'll come to you on this first. I don't really want to go over the the racist incident that happened in regard to Kyogo Furuhashi last weekend. I think, as Ange has alluded to during the week, there's no real debate to be had over that. It's wrong, and there should be a line drawn under it as far as that's concerned. But one of the interesting talking points that I've seen being raised on various talk shows, one of the first ones was BBC Sports Sound, was Tom English. I was going to mention the other one, but I'm not going to bother because, as we all know, it's not relevant. But Tom English raised a point about, whether he said at the time James Tavernier, whether he'll be available or not, but whether a Rangers player might go over and show a sign of solidarity with Kyogo, much similar to the way Scott Brown did with Glenn Kamara last season. Now, not to set you up too much for an answer, Jim, but my feeling on that is I don't feel like any of the Rangers players are obliged to do anything. I think the club have taken very swift action, as they should have done, against the people involved. And I think to put a Rangers player under pressure to make a gesture like that, not only does it remove a bit of the genuine concern that they might have for the player, but I think it can't be directly compared to Scott Brown's, because his was done off his own back, and there would be an element of a Rangers player being pressurised into doing it after what's happened. And equally then, if he does go and do it, folk will be sort of questioning whether it was a genuine thing to have done. What are your thoughts on people saying that Rangers should be forced into making a gesture like that?
So that's a nice, easy question, Laura. Thanks for that. Nice, easy question. Racism has no place in football or in society in general. Incidents that we've seen last week are unfortunate. What happened to Glenn Kamara was unfortunate. I think when you start doing things that may be construed as gestures, where do you stop? And I think, things like, once upon a time, back in the day, before you were born, Lord, we didn't have things like minute silences very often. But nowadays, there's much more of them. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but people then trying to judge, well, should we do this for this? Should we not do this for that? And you start to murky the water a wee bit with this kind of stuff. As I said, racism has no place in football at all. It should be stamped out. I thought Rangers were very decisive in what they said. There's no place for this, and they were going to ban the supporters bus. As far as I'm concerned, that's it finished. We move on. I don't think Kyogo, and I'm just guessing here, obviously, would be too fussed about anyone from the opposition come over and pat them in the back or whatever. I mean, that's a kind of, I think we move on. I think Ange, not for the first time this season, has been superb in terms of how he dealt with it. It's wrong, stop it and call it out and move on. And yeah, I think if people do something, people might construe that as being an empty gesture. So let's not bother with anything. It's been dealt with, and we move on, and hopefully we don't see any more of the same in the future.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I appreciate for everybody watching, and there will be people from all over the world watching, people of all different ethnicities and things, that the ability of three white people sitting talking about this when none of us have been unfortunate enough to experience racism is something that we can only have a limited experience and limited knowledge of how we would feel about it. Tony, it's not really about the racist incident itself, as Jim was saying. It's about the gestures surrounding it. What did you make of the comments that were made, and do you feel like it's a bit of a no-win situation for a Rangers player in this situation, I guess?
I think it's unfair on the likes of Tavernier or any Rangers player that maybe had it in their mind to do what Scott Brown did. Because as you say now, they'll question the motives, or you're only doing that because you were forced to do it. I think there are football players are quite friendly. Out with the clubs that they play for. Stripping away the jersey. And I believe that possibly if Tavernier or anyone else for that matter would have wanted to do that, they would have done it. But would they do it now because they've been kind of, as you say, forced or backed into a corner about it? I agree with Jim. The issue's dealt with, moved on. Ange Postecoglou, whose birthday is today, I believe. So we'll say happy birthday to...
Happy birthday, Ange.
He dealt with it brilliantly, so we don't need to rake over the coals of the incident itself, and Rangers dealt with it swiftly, but I think they've put an unnecessary pressure on the Rangers players to actually do a gesture. But let's be honest, footballers are human beings. They get affected by things, and the football family and all that. Only footballers can experience, or can empathise with experiences that players have gone through. So I would think that Tavernier would probably be one of the first to say to Kyogo, we stand behind you, Glenn Kamara for that matter. You know what I mean? But as I say, now there's the eyes of the world are on this game now, and the eyes of the world are now on the Rangers players to do that. And I think it's unfair because it strips away the goodness from it. Because even if somebody does do it, then there's going to be the finger of suspicion on it. You didn't do it for the right reasons. And that's pretty appalling, actually. Because I think footballers, regardless if you play for Celtic, Rangers, Partick Thistle, Cowden, Beath, you're a human being. Human beings usually do the right thing, in my opinion. I like to give human beings the benefit of the doubt. Our manager said that himself. It's about being a human being, and see if a Rangers player does go up to Kyogo on Sunday and says we stand with you, or gives him, shakes his hand or whatever, then I'm going to take the goodness out of it and say thanks very much and fair play to you, and I don't want the scrutiny about it. Whoever steps up to the plate and does that, then great. But see if none of the players do it, then it won't perturb me and I won't be upset by it, but I'd like to think somebody would maybe do it, but it's purely up to them. And I think that they've been put under unnecessary pressure to approach Kyogo and shake his hand, but I still maintain that footballers, by and large, they're human beings and they're good people.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to say as well is not everything does need to be done in a public sphere. There's plenty of opportunity for players in this day and age to communicate out with the public eye, and perhaps that's been done and we'll never know about it. Perhaps it will be done in the tunnels or in the dressing rooms on the day of the game. So, yeah, I think pointing the finger at anybody and saying they should or shouldn't do this is as much of the problem as anything else. Yeah. So, I think fair enough. If they do it, excellent. If they don't do it, nothing should be held against them for it, because I think it's up to individuals how they deal with these things.
I think you've also got to question the motivation of the person who raised that in the first place.
Yeah.
It's put something in the public domain. You think, well, nobody was bothered about that. Just move on, because all racists are morons anyway. So you don't give them oxygen. We'll go and do another thing that's going to highlight, publicise things. So I'm not sure why somebody would raise that in the first place. And as you said, Laura, for all we know, there's people, all football players. I mean, I don't think we can look to football players to be role models for the rest of society. And I'm pretty sure guys like James Tavernier, whoever might, see Kyogo in the tunnel before the game and maybe say something to him. And if he does that, then that's fantastic. If he doesn't do that, it doesn't matter anyway. What was done was completely wrong. Rangers have dealt with it very well, and you move on.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And again, I just do want to stress the point, we're a Celtic podcast, but at the end of the day, football teams are football teams and they're human beings. And I think credit has to be given to Rangers here. It's the swift and decisive action that they did. To close out the show, we'll go back to disliking them in the way that we normally do in a footballing sense, of course. Tony, I'll come to you first. Predictions. Are you willing to nail your colours to the mast and put a score down? And a first goal scorer, we'll go for that as well.
Oh, come on, man. That's frightening. Do you know what? I'm going to say 2-1 Celtic Kyogo.
Excellent. I'm up for that. Jim, before I give my final predictions, I'll come to you and ask the same. Score and first scorer.
I said earlier, head says we lose, heart says we win. Not Joe Hart. So I think we'll get a draw, 2 each, and I think I think one of the bad guys will score first. We'll equalise. We'll go 2-1 ahead, and then we'll lose an Ange daft goal in the last minute. And draw 2 each. 2 each.
Well, JP 2-1 Celtic.
Turnbull for the first Celtic goal.
Turnbull for the first Celtic goal. I'll go with that for obvious reasons. I'll go Turnbull first Celtic goal, and I'll agree with JP on YouTube and say Celtic 2-1. If you're watching this after the live broadcast. Obviously, get your predictions in the comments below. Let us know what you think about the game. Obviously, do it before the game on Sunday, because if you do it afterwards, that's just cheating. So, but thanks very much, Tony. Thanks very much, Jim, for another interesting show, an interesting broadcast, and plenty to discuss. As I said to everybody before who's watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, thanks very much for getting involved. Hit the like and subscribe button on the State of Mind YouTube channel where you can enter the monthly draw for a giveaway prize. Thanks, everybody. Mon the hoops, on to the weekend and to another victory. Cheers.
Cheers, Laura.
Cheers, Laura.